The Strait of Hormuz was once a place of quiet beauty, marked by a raw and almost untouched stillness. Now, it is becoming one of the most dangerous waterways on Earth. For ships, these waters are turning into a nightmare. War is escalating, commercial vessels have come under attack, fires have broken out at sea, and the fear of mines, missiles, and sudden strikes now hangs over one of the most important maritime corridors in the world. If Hormuz were to close, oil prices would surge, and the shock would not stop in the Gulf. It would spread through energy markets, shipping, trade, and the wider global economy. But Hormuz is not defined by danger alone. Along the Iranian side of the strait, where this narrow passage meets dry mountains and scattered islands, there is still a landscape of almost surreal beauty. There is the burning red terrain of Hormuz Island, the glittering salt caves of Qeshm, valleys stained with strange mineral colors, ancient forts looking out over the sea, and small fishing villages still holding their ground against rock, wind, and salt. That contradiction is what makes Hormuz so compelling. This is not only a flashpoint of war, it is also a place where the beauty, geography, and history of Iran come into sharp view at the edge of crisis. To understand Hormuz, both truths have to be seen at once: the fragility of a waterway that could shake the world, and the wild beauty that still makes it impossible to forget. On the northern side of the Strait of Hormuz, Iran does not feel distant. It rises abruptly out of the water, harsh and sun-struck, as if the land itself has been pushed to the edge of the sea. The coast is dry, broken, and severe, yet it holds a presence that is impossible to ignore. Mountains descend in rough layers toward the Gulf. Islands sit low on the horizon like fragments of a harder world. Even the light feels different here, sharper, clearer, less forgiving. This is where Hormuz begins to reveal its second truth. Beyond the fear of disruption, beyond tankers and military patrols, there is a coastline shaped by salt, wind, stone, and centuries of maritime life. That is what makes the Iranian side of the strait so compelling. It is not simply a place the world worries about. It is a place the world should look at more carefully, because here, geography still feels raw enough to explain history. Few places around the strait look as startling as Hormuz Island. From a distance, it seems almost unreal, a piece of land washed in red, rust, and deep orange, as if heat had stained the ground and never left. The hills are bare. The shoreline is stark. And yet the island feels intensely alive in color. Under the Gulf sun, the earth glows with a strange richness that no ordinary coastline can imitate. This is not the beauty of forests or rivers. It is the beauty of exposed minerals, volcanic memory, and land stripped down to its most vivid form. That is why Hormuz Island is so unforgettable on camera. Every ridge, every slope, every stretch of colored ground feels like a frame already composed. And what makes it even more powerful is where it sits, beside one of the most fragile waterways on Earth. Here, beauty does not soften the tension of the strait. It sharpens it, making the whole place feel even more extraordinary and even more uneasy. If Hormuz Island feels intense and concentrated, Qeshm feels expansive. It is the kind of place that keeps changing as you move through it, never offering only one face for very long. One moment, there are cliffs falling toward the water. Then come broad, tidal flats, dry ridges, fishing harbors, quiet roads, and villages pressed between coastline and stone. Farther on, mangroves appear where the sea turns shallow, and the island begins to feel softer, more tidal, more alive with movement. That variety is what makes Qeshm so important in this story. It expands the meaning of Hormuz. The strait is not bordered only by pressure and danger. It is bordered by one of southern Iran's richest landscapes, where geology, sea life, and human settlement have had to negotiate with one another for centuries. On screen, Qeshm gives range and rhythm. In meaning, it gives the strait depth. It reminds you that the world's most sensitive passages are often surrounded by places far more beautiful and complex than headlines allow. On Qeshm, the land sometimes looks less eroded than imagined. Nowhere is that more clear than in the Valley of Stars. Here, wind and rain have carved the rock into towers, walls, narrow corridors, and strange formations that seem too deliberate to be accidental. The place feels ancient, but not in the way of ruins. It feels ancient in the way of silence, as if time itself had been working here without interruption for thousands of years. Local legend once said, "A falling star struck this ground." Standing among the formations, the story does not feel excessive. The landscape invites belief because it already looks like a place where ordinary explanations arrive too late. That is what makes the valley so effective in a film like this. It introduces mystery without leaving reality behind. A few slow tracking shots, a figure moving through shadow, light catching the rough edges of stone, and the place begins to feel almost monumental. It is not just a location. It is a shift in mood, and that matters. Where the Valley of Stars opens upward, Chahkooh closes in. This gorge is tighter, darker, more severe, a place where the rock seems to press inward from both sides and reduce the world to passage, shadow, and height. The walls are marked by grooves, hollows, and thin lines cut over time by water finding weakness in stone. Nothing here feels decorative. Everything feels earned. That is what gives Chahkooh its power. It does not overwhelm through color or scale alone, but through compression. You feel the land narrowing around you. You feel pressure in the shape of the place itself. On film, that creates a different kind of beauty, one built from texture, silence, and the movement of light across rough surfaces. And in the wider story of Hormuz, Chahkooh carries a deeper resonance. This is a region so often defined by tension, and here the land itself seems to have been formed under tension. Stone, like history, has been forced inward, cut slowly, and left exposed. Not everything around Hormuz announces itself through drama. Some of its most memorable beauty is quieter than that. In Laft, on Qeshm's northern side, the relationship between people, sea, and climate becomes visible in a more human scale. Windcatchers rise above old houses. Narrow lanes hold onto shadow. Small harbors gather boats in calm water. Nearby, the Hara mangroves spread across the shallows, turning part of this dry coastline into a moving world of roots, birds, reflections, and tide. This is where the film can breathe. After red hills, canyons, and stone corridors, Laft offers continuity rather than spectacle. It shows how people have learned to live with heat, wind, salt, and shifting water, not by conquering the coast, but by adjusting to it. That makes this place more than picturesque. It makes it intelligent, and for the story of Hormuz, that matters. Because the strait is not only a place of strategic fear, it is also a lived landscape, shaped every day by craft, tide, patience, and memory. After the sea, the islands, and the pressure of Hormuz, Yazd changes the scale of the story completely. Rising from the heart of Iran's central plateau, this historic desert city feels shaped not by abundance, but by endurance. Mud brick walls, narrow lanes, windcatchers, and the old qanat water system reveal a place that learned how to survive heat, scarcity, and distance with intelligence rather than force. That is what makes Yazd so compelling on film. Its beauty is quiet, architectural, and deeply human. Rooflines stretch beneath desert light. towers catch the wind. Courtyards hold shade where the surrounding land offers almost none. Nothing here feels accidental. Everything feels adapted. And in the wider logic of the documentary, Yazd matters because it reveals another truth about Iran. Beyond the danger of its waters and the drama of its coastlines lies a civilization that has spent centuries turning harsh conditions into lasting beauty. If Yazd preserves endurance, Tehran projects momentum. Set against the southern slopes of the Alborz Mountains, the capital feels dense, restless, and layered, a city where modern Iran appears in full view. Towers rise above highways, bridges cut across the urban fabric, and the skyline pushes outward with the confidence of a place that refuses to stand still. Yet Tehran is never only modern. Golestan Palace keeps an older language of power and ornament in the frame, while the mountains beyond the city remind you that landscape still watches over the capital. That tension is what makes Tehran work so well here. It is not a break from the rest of the film, but a gathering point for it. After the strait, the islands, and the historic cities farther south, Tehran shows a country still defined by pressure, ambition, and complexity all at once. It is the Iran of headlines, but also the Iran of scale, energy, and presence. To close this movement through Iran, the story turns northwest to Tabriz, a city where history feels commercial, architectural, and alive at the same time. For centuries, Tabriz stood at a crucial point on the Silk Road, and that legacy still survives most powerfully in its historic bazaar. Covered brick passages, vaulted ceilings, market lanes, and old trading spaces give the city an atmosphere unlike anywhere else in the country. This is not beauty built on spectacle alone. It is beauty shaped by exchange, endurance, and urban memory. That is why Tabriz gives the documentary such a strong ending. It brings the story back to movement, trade, and the deeper roots that have long connected Iran to the wider world. After Hormuz, that matters. Because the country is not only defined by one dangerous strait, it is also defined by the cities, markets, and cultural crossings that made it important. Long before modern crisis returned the world's attention to its borders,